So good afternoon. I understand that I am the closing address, so I'll make my comments brief, right? And so thank you for having me, Cape Fear River Watch. It is an honor. I serve as a Deputy Director of North Carolina Black Alliance, a board member of Democracy Green, and Deputy Director of Advanced Carolina. I was recently appointed to the Department of Environmental Quality's Environmental Justice and Equity Advisory Board. However, my comments today are not reflective of my position there. Look, I had to throw that out there, y'all. I had to throw that out there. And I just want to say in return, Dana is a shero of mine and has been for years. And so it's just an honor to be able to be perceived in such a way by someone I have watched from very far and now very close as a co-petitioner in that joint lawsuit to the EPA and the numerous amount of work and equity that you do in our community. And so again, thank you for this esteemed honor to deliver the State of the River closing address. It is a cherished gift to be in person for this event. I am very tired of Zoom. Extremely tired of Zoom, so it is an honor to be here. We have heard critical updates and key issues that face our state throughout today. The state of the river is that we have much more work to do, and we have to do it in unity. In North Carolina, on our shores, we've historically faced the prioritization of profit over people, corporatization over accountability. We are no strangers to facing harmful contaminants, polluting interests, or corrupt lawmakers and natural disasters. From PCE to PCB, to concentrated animal feeding operations, PFAS, lead, cryptosporidium, liquefied natural gas, gentrification, deforestation, fracking, climate disasters, and the list goes on. The destruction to our state and waterways that we are witnessing is the byproduct of a broken political and economic system. This is a system based on the political marginalization of our communities, specifically minority and marginalized communities, shouldered on the backs of women, the men, and the children who have faced head-on these dirty corporations and the politicians who back them, along with a government that has been captured and bought by powerful polluting interests. It is this system that has prevented North Carolina from tackling PFAS, as many of you have either known before or deepened your analysis today. It is that system that is stopping our state lawmakers from tackling CAFOs, lead in schools, man-made disasters, dirty money in politics, and stopping pollution at its source. It is this broken system and not Mother Nature that has given rise to the unspeakable suffering we see today and the very serious threats that face us all. In the 1900s, service members, their families, and the surrounding community faced the grave impact of PCE, a chemical used in a dirty, dry cleaning company on the base of Camp Lejeune, a site that became so hazardous that the EPA declared it a Superfund site. And decades later, it still hasn't been cleaned up, hasn't been remediated. Sounds similar to PFAS, huh? To our fight against PFAS, where we have seen courageous service members, firefighters, families living in rental housing that cannot afford or convince their landlords to install a reverse osmosis filtration system, or our children who were forced to drink contaminated PFAS water as they received their education. We see the same historic impact in today's 2022 modern times, the loss of lives, the health disparities exacerbated by COVID-19, and the future well-being of our people and our state. As contaminants were poured through the 1900s into our waterways and leached into the groundwater, we saw historic storms from Hurricane Diana to Hurricane Fran in the 80s, where it spread these polluted waters much further into dozens of homes, child care centers, correctional facilities, over our livestock and our fields. Storms have increased over the years, and while our communities were told climate change does not exist, we cried out from that storm, living proof that our climate is in a state of duress. We saw this reality come to a head in 2018, when many of us fought in the waters of Hurricane Florence, delivering aid to one another because FEMA couldn't get to us. Another climate disaster in Florence, a 500-year storm that unleashed 7 million gallons of untreated swine feces into our floodwaters and waterways, leading to a host of illnesses and diseases that are still facing our people today and exacerbated by COVID-19, the lack of affordable and safe housing, the lack of access to health care, and food insecurity. 80 out of 100 counties in North Carolina are considered food insecure. Around the same time, in this year of Hurricane Florence and our recovery, many of our communities were then becoming more aware of what PFAS Well, just being aware of what PFAS was, not even understanding the impact on our lives. We experience excess rain on top of PFAS that caused coal ash to breach from 5 Duke Energy coal ash dumps in the Neuse River, that caused arsenic levels to be nearly 18 times higher than the state safety standard for drinking water. Cities today are still faced with that contaminated drinking water, and schools are still forced to drink from water bottles. Additionally, we see the communities most impacted by this destruction are disproportionately low-income communities and communities of color who are already burdened by decades of pollution. When blacks are exposed to about 56% and Hispanics 63% more air pollution than whites because the dirtiest of corporations operate in former Jim Crow era zoned communities. But the reason I smile is because through it all, we have stood in the face of that adversity. I'm an Afro-Indigenous woman. I'm from North Carolina. I'm from the mountains. My people were here, and we still stand. I am a seed, a product. We have stood as a people in the face of adversity. We have pushed back against giants that are corporations, daring to look them in the eye and demand accountability. We have stood in the eye of the storms that have dotted our shores, wading in hurricane-torn waters to help our neighbors. And this year, on the 40th anniversary, history will show that as the chemical PCB was being dumped in Warren County, the black residents and allies fought back, lying in front of State Department vehicles, fasting without food and crying out. And while it appeared they were defeated, they birthed the environmental justice movement that has now been codified into law, that has paved the way for me to be appointed to serve on the Department of Environmental Quality Advisory Board, a dream that I had no idea as a child riding horses in the deep mountains that loved fresh air and clean water. When the Atlantic Coast Pipeline threatened to cut through the Black Belt of Eastern North Carolina, Haliwa, Saponi, and Lumbee lands, we organized in community with many of you. And through levels of government, we defeated it. When PFAS came to light in our state, our communities didn't lie down and take it. We organized community workshops, called on our state government and local governing bodies for answers while recovering from hurricanes. Mothers became experts, fathers became scientists. Cape Fear River Watch fought to secure a consent order. Numerous community members stepped forward to be tested for PFAS, lending themselves, their bodies to be tested. And universities devoted that research to study the impacts on us. My organization, alongside Cape Fear River Watch, Clean Cape Fear, Democracy Green, Toxic Free NC, and Center for Environmental Health, filed a petition and now a lawsuit to the US EPA to stand against Comores, because we don't take it lying down, period. It's what we do. So as an Afro-Indigenous woman hailing from the Blue Ridge Mountains, I am a water keeper. I was reared to understand the source of life flows from the nectar of the earth. The rivers that flow form the very cradle of our existence. We are tasked to be stewards of the earth and of each other, because polluted air doesn't stop flowing once it reaches the black neighborhoods. Contaminated water doesn't stop flowing because it reaches a Hispanic neighborhood. The poison dumped in one community comes for all communities. You see, the struggle may have been forced upon our lands, our waters, and our bodies without our consent, but the pathway to victory, resilience, and survival runs through our blood. Same as the river runs through our communities to provide sustenance for the fight that lies ahead. And everyone here, we